We would just picture Jack Canfield having my book in his hands, reading it, chuckling to himself, laughing, and really just absolutely loving the book. And we did that for a month or two straight. It came time for me to actually do the success retreat with Jack. It was all on Zoom. Jack comes on the screen, and it was as if someone hit the play button on the visualizations that my mom and I were doing. He was saying literally stuff word for word what we had visualized. He was acting exactly like he was chuckling to himself as he was flipping through and reading the chapters and holding it up for people to see. It was unbelievable.
Hello, dear listeners. It's that time again when we stroll through the paths of ambition, desire, and success. Welcome to the Dare to Declare podcast, where we explore the enchanting world of giant manifestors who've turned their visions and goals into the stuff of legends. I couldn't help but wonder, how do some people create the lives they've always dreamed of? Is it the magic of manifesting, the power of perseverance, or perhaps just a dash of serendipity? Well, dear friends, grab your coffee cups because we're about to spill the tea on fascinating journeys of those who dare to dream big and make it happen. Join me as we sip on success stories and ponder the ever-enticing question, can we all manifest our dreams into reality, or is it just an urban fairy tale? I'm your host, Debbi Sluice, and I'm here to guide you through the labyrinth of achievement with heart and soul. Ready to dare to declare? Let's get started. Hey everyone, you're in for a treat today. I am so excited for you to meet Adam LaRue. Now, we met through our connection with Jack Canfield, Chicken Soup for the Soul, the Success Principles. And when I reached out to Adam, this was prior to us meeting actually in person. We got to meet in person in California. I discovered that he had written a book. And now, I meet lots of authors and we have lots of people who write books, but his book, we're going to talk about it today, is so cool. And so, welcome, Adam. I'm really glad that you're here today.
Awesome. Thanks, Debbie. I really appreciate you having me on.
For sure. And so another reason that I wanted to have you on is because I love showcasing Canadians. So remind me where you're from again.
Yeah. Okay. So I am originally from Victoria, BC. Then I spent about 15 years in Vancouver. And right now I am living on the Sunshine Coast, which is about a 45-minute ferry ride outside of Vancouver.
I think I have relatives that live really close to you, like in that same area. So very cool. And Sunshine Coast, I actually thought it was like a nickname. Like I thought it was like a made up place. It sounds like unicorns should be running around there or something.
Yeah. No, it's a real place and it's quite beautiful.
Yeah. So you are right now, as we're recording, on a holiday. Now, are you heading back to class tomorrow?
Back to school tomorrow. And it's funny, I was thinking about that. Like this morning I woke up. I feel the same as I used to feel when I was a kid going back to school. There's that same level of nerves and excitement. Like even though I'm a teacher, you still have that back to school nervousness. It's funny. It never goes away.
Really? What do you think that's about?
Honestly, I think it's about you're 2 months off. You're kind of I don't want to say you're out of the game, but you've been off for 2 months. And all of a sudden you're going to be thrust back in that position of sort of like performing for an audience again, right? So it's like in a way you're kind of an entertainer. And it's like getting ready to go back on stage again.
Huh. I never thought of it.
Yeah. I'm maybe not everybody thinks about it like that. I'm sure lots of teachers don't, but for me, that's always what it feels like. It feels like you're kind of ready to go perform again.
And so perform, how old are is your audience?
Oh, grade 8 to 12. So teenagers. So kind of like 13 to 17, 18.
And how long have you been teaching?
A long time. This will be almost 20 years, which is crazy to me because it doesn't feel like that. But in next year, it will have been 20 years, which is crazy to me.
Now, for those of you who aren't watching this, I know some of you will see this on YouTube, but he looks 20. So it's like,
Yes, I'm actually a genius. I started when I was 10.
oh, that's awesome. So in your 20 years, I'm curious because this also kind of ties into your book. What have you seen that's changed in the way that kids learn, the way that we teach, like just, some of the things that you've noticed as an educator?
Okay, it's funny you asked this. I'm actually doing my master's degree right now in counseling psychology, and I'm just finishing up my big thesis for the end, and it's on social media and social media addiction. That has been the single biggest change that I've seen is kids coming to school with a cell phone everybody connected on social media. Not just kids using Chat GPT, but like teachers using Chat GPT to create lessons and stuff. Um, that the internet, like not just the internet, but the cell phones and AI have absolutely changed the school system.
Hmm. And what has been your do you have any outcomes from that, or is it just observation in your paper? Like what's been your high
So
yeah, outcomes?
yeah, yeah. So my paper was about like social media addiction, and I just see so many kids today who are just like their phone might as well be like surgically implanted into their palm because it's always there. And sometimes you're sitting with a kid, and it is work to try to like get them to like put that phone away and actually look at you face to face, look you in the eyes, put that phone away, and like it's crazy. Like there's a lot of kids who really struggle with addiction, and they just it's gotta be there, they've gotta see it, and I actually think it's, like, it's quite unhealthy, and I'm glad I picked the, thesis topic that I did because I've learned a lot, and, I myself struggle with it. I'm actually trying to get myself, spend less time on social media, less time with my phone, going back to how it used to be of kind of being bored and, like, welcoming that silence into your life where you don't constantly have, like, a song playing in the background or a YouTube video or something, like, just trying to, like, remember how it used to be before we had these phones, because they've changed everything.
Right. Yeah, I mean, I don't know what all your research has discovered, but I would imagine that mentally there had been outcomes, and then also to do with like physically, the way, like you said, in your hand. So the way that we're holding, like what kind of things are happening within our wrist and our hands, and then even our neck, right? And
They
I,
call it
pardon?
they call it tech neck. It's that whole, like, hunched over thing and, like, people constantly staring down, people, developing a lot of neck problems. And mentally, like, it's really been shown that kids who struggle with social media addiction, it really elevates their levels of anxiety and depression, and it also really negatively impacts their school performance.
Hmm. So, your book, would you say it kind of, well, it's called Remember When, so I'm just going to hold it up here. Well, you can see my mark is still in here. I'm still reading it. But yeah, and so this, would you say it's like the epitome of nostalgia?
Yes. Yes, I would. And it's funny because I was born in 1982 and I kind of wrote it like from that generation of people who grew up in the 80s and 90s. But it's really interesting to me. Like I've had readers who have been like all ages, like in their 70s, 80s, even their 90s, and they'll tell me or they'll write to me and it's like, hey, I really loved your book. Like I resonated with so much. Like maybe not every single chapter because there's a couple chapters about video games and stuff like that, but, yeah, I would say it's kind of like the ultimate nostalgia, and people are really finding that they're relating to it, and it doesn't necessarily matter how old they are because, like, a lot of the themes in there are very universal, and that's what people are relating to, and it takes them back to memories of their own childhood.
Yeah, that's what it did for me. And that, I'm older than you, and was a little girl versus boy. And it made me bring up memories I had forgotten, like things like our banana seat bike, right? Like like I was in Grand Rapids, Michigan. My dad was became a minister, so he was studying in Grand Rapids, and we lived in this kind of lower poverty kind of area. But we played in the puddles, we rode our bikes, we like all the things. But I remember riding down one time, this look at this, what but now I've been back as an adult, it's not that steep, but as a kid, it was, like, super steep, right? And just kinda, like, putting your legs out and just
Yeah.
flying around. And my sister, we were doing it, and she ended up getting needing stitches. Of course, there's always kinda, like, stitches involved, and um, but I'd forgotten about that, and then, thinking about playing, like, what we used to play was with marbles. I mean, I make it sound like I'm, like, from the Victorian ages, but, like, we actually had, like, glass marbles, and they were so pretty, and, you have a collection, and then you'd play them, and you'd, like, lose them, like, to
Yeah.
kids because they'd win your marbles, and be like, "Oh, man," like, stuff like that. It was just like, so you brought back a lot of really beautiful memories, and I love how you've organized your book as well to short chapters. Tell me about the decision to do that.
Okay, so that is based somewhat like on my self-diagnosed ADD. Short chapters work really well for me because like this book, um, I started in stand up. And so um a lot of the stories in the book came from my time on stage as a stand-up comedian. And so some of those stories very easily translated. But then the other ones, like I used to struggle with like trying to do too much. I would have too many projects on the go. Um, and I found I never got anything done. So when I started writing this book, I made the intentional decision that I was gonna kind of like play to my strengths. And that is being able to kind of like I can hyper focus and get one thing done, and then I can move on to the other. So those short chapters worked really well for me so that I could actually like finish the book. The thought of writing like say like a Tolkien-esque or like a Game of Thrones, like a 7 volume character, everything. To me, that is overwhelming. But if I can tell little stories and kind of keep them short and snappy, and funny, that really, really works well for how my brain works and how kind of I am as a person. So it was just like a natural evolution of sort of finding out my strengths and my limitations and like putting those together to like create something.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. You know, um, I did a fundraiser one time at our church. Not one time, we did it several years. And I had like I was a decorator of like setting up the theme, but then I also got thrown into volunteering to waitress.
Oh,
I had no idea how hard waitressing is. Like, waitresses that especially those that don't even use a notebook and they just remember everything and it's like, and they come out with the orders and everything's perfect. Well, the same thing with writing a book. I never really realized how challenging it is to write a book. I'm now writing my own. And so I've been inspired by yours and all the stories in it. So I'm curious, like, how did you remember and how did you like catalog all your stories? Like, did you go back to family members and go, hey, give me some of your childhood memory? Like, where did all these stories come from?
that is such a great question. And it's really funny because I have a terrible short-term memory. And I always have. Like when I was a kid, my mom would come and tell me something. She'd be like, I need you to do this and this. I'd be like, yeah, okay. And it was gone, right? Short-term memory, zero. I have this crazy like elephant long-term memory where just I honestly don't know how I can remember all that stuff. It's really funny you say that because almost everybody who reads the book is like, how did you remember that? And how did you remember it in all that detail? I don't actually have an answer. I don't know. But I do. I think part of it is because I actually did have like a really, I would say like a blessed childhood. Like we weren't rich, we were middle class, but that was back when middle class was like would be like today's rich.
Right, right. Got it. Yeah, yeah.
So like we had a great life and what we got to grow up in a like a beautiful place and it was just like when you picture like a beautiful childhood with like a street with like kids running around and riding bikes and playing hide and seek and stuff like that. Like that's kind of how I grew up. And just I think I just really held on to that because it was such a wonderful childhood. And as I got older and life started getting more difficult, I found myself kind of thinking back to those simpler times and be like, oh, do you remember like when you used to do this or when you were friends with that person and like you guys would just like spend your days like walking in the woods or like playing in the creek or going to the beach or whatever. And I just had so many great memories in my childhood. And they made me happy. They made me feel good, and I knew that other people would probably have like be able to relate to that. And that's kind of like I think that's where those memories came from. Is that I so many great experiences and thinking that other people would probably feel good if they could think back to those times in their life and kind of get themselves out of the present day, like stressful circumstances of being an adult.
I agree. You mentioned your mom. Tell me a bit about your mom and her part in your manifestation.
Oh yeah. Okay, so my mom is like hands down my number one supporter, and I'm really grateful for her. So when I started writing this book before it was even like even finished, I remember thinking like, oh, if only I could get this book to Jack Canfield. I feel like he could really help me. I feel like he would love this book and could really help me get it out there. And it was just a thought back in like 2012. And then a couple years ago, I signed up for a Jack Canfield author success retreat, which at first I actually thought was a scam. I tell everybody this. It popped up on my Facebook, and I was like, it looked like a scam. I even
Yeah, yeah.
I'm like, you guys might want to like redo your your website. I don't know, something about it.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, it was not a scam. It was legit, and I signed up for it. And so what that was, you got to send your book to Jack Canfield and a few other people, and they would read it and give you feedback on it. And so I think about a month or two before this, I phoned up my mom and said, "Hey, like this is what I'm going to do. Will you help me visualize Jack Canfield reading my book and absolutely loving it? Will you help me visualize that?" She said, "Sure." And she had something she wanted me to help visualize with. So every night for 10 minutes each at the same time, we would text each other and we would start. And we would just picture Jack Canfield having my book in his hands, reading it, chuckling to himself, laughing, and really just absolutely loving the book. And we did that for a month or two straight. When it came time for me to actually like do the success retreat with Jack, it was all on Zoom. Um, Jack comes on the screen, and it was as if someone hit the play button on the visualizations that my mom and I were doing. He was saying like literally stuff word for word what we had visualized. He was acting exactly like he was like chuckling to himself as he was flipping through and reading the chapters and holding it up for people to see. It was unbelievable. I don't think I've ever experienced anything in my life like that. It was like a glitch in the matrix where I was just watching the visualizations. It absolutely floored me.
Amazing. So I got to go back one step. So your mom must have taught you how to do this, or where did the two of you learn how to visualize like that?
This came from when I first got into visualization was when I was doing stand up. Because I started off really really strong, doing very well. And then I did one show where the ending was kind of rough and it kind of killed my momentum a little bit. And then I had a few bad shows in a row. And one night in Vancouver, I was sitting there on the beach. This was like the middle of January. I still remember this like clear as day. It was freezing cold. It was dark. And it was about to start raining. And I was sitting there just so bummed out. And I was at Kitts Beach in Vancouver. And this girl, well, woman, walked by, and she just started making small talk. And if you're from Vancouver, you know that that in itself is a miracle.
Oh,
Yeah. And so I started talking with this woman, and somehow we got to talking about me doing stand up. And I just wound up telling her, and she's like, "Oh, how's that going?" And I said, "Well, it started off really well, but I've just been in a rough spot lately where I'm just doing a lot of bad shows." And she asked me, she said, "Well, have you ever had a good show?" And I said, "Yeah, I've done lots of good shows." And she said, "Okay, I want you to try something. The next time you have a show, before that happens, I want you to spend like 10 or 15 minutes thinking about all those good shows you had before. And I want you to feel and remember what that felt like. And before you go on stage, I want you to picture the audience laughing. I want you to picture yourself up on stage and the audience just like eating out of the palm of your hand, just absolutely laughing. You're killing it and you're doing awesome again." And I had nothing to lose. So I said, "Okay, I'll try that." I did it. The next show, I did the best show of my life in the biggest comedy club in Vancouver. And I absolutely blew the roof off the place. And it was unbelievable. It was like this moment in my life where just something clicked. I'm like, "Oh my God, like this works." And that is actually how I got into visualization.
so good. I love that story. That's awesome. So is she just kind of a stranger on the beach? You don't know who she is?
Stranger on the beach. It was hilarious. My wife will get mad at me for this later, but she was this beautiful woman who just came out of the darkness.
Yeah,
And
yeah.
she taught me this amazing thing. And and you know what? After that, I always use visualization for every show. I think after that, I had two dud shows, and one was because and they were both the material. It was sort of like I went unprepared. I was like, "I'm just gonna wing this and see what happens." But every other show that I treated like I normally did went extremely well, and to the point where I was actually starting to get paid for doing comedy.
So good. Okay, I will just put a pin in that for a minute because I want to come circle back on that. But you just mentioned your wife, and when I was reading your book, I think you actually didn't think you were going to have children, right? I was reading, I'm like, wait, what? I think yeah. Wait, last time I talked to him, I think there was a little one running around in the background.
Yes. Yeah,
Yeah.
so I started writing that book in 2012. And back then I was like, no marriage, no children. Like never gonna get married, never gonna have kids, not for me. And then that all changed in I guess 2020. Yeah, I got married. We have a beautiful daughter, and it's hilarious because like my daughter is like the joy of my life. And I can imagine life without her, but it's like, whoa, what would that be like? Like, I just love her more than anything. And she just brings so much joy to my life. It was the greatest 180 I've ever done in my life.
So good. So, thinking about what you said around your students and your paper that you're working on, the research you've been doing, what are you offering to your daughter to support her to have an experience like you did as a kid that you wrote about, and knowing, the challenges that are facing her as she's going to grow up? What are some of the things that you're doing that you could offer to the listener as a parent?
Yeah, okay, so my wife and I are really on the same page, like, no phones for she's only 3, right? Like, we never give her the phone to keep her entertained. Like, she can watch TV for like, she watches TV and stuff, but the phone is so different. Like, she's not one of those kids who we give her a phone and push her in the stroller. Like, we read her books, we do puzzles with her, we do a lot of hands-on stuff that will stimulate her brain that is not on the phone because they are so addicting, and I think, like, it's kind of, that urban legend that I think is actually true, is that the tech moguls, they don't give smartphones to their kids because they know how addicting they are, and, like, these smartphones are very new, like, humanity has done just fine without them, and I would say only in the last, 15 years they've been out. Like, people don't need to give their kids these screens, right? Like, we grew up reading books, doing puzzles, playing games, using their imaginations. I think if you give a kid a phone, you're robbing them of developing their imagination. And I think that's in some ways like a crime because imagination is everything to kids.
Oh, yes, I agree. So this is my background was in early years. So I spent 30 years in childcare for, 0 to 12. And that's where I got into vision boards, was because it's just a natural progression for me to go from play-based learning with kids into what's playful with adults. And it's all around imagination and visualizing. So if, this is where the comes in with AI, gets kind of confusing and convoluted, with this whole visualizing piece as well, is that we don't want a computer to be creating what we can then, because we miss out on the feeling, right? And that's what promotes the law of attraction.
Yes.
Yeah. What's one of your favorite chapters in your book?
um, I think honestly, like, okay, so one of my favorite ones is the one about if you touch it, you take it. And then said, do you know that one? You know the one I'm talking about?
I'm trying to think if I read that one already or not, but it just makes me laugh about, like, if you got siblings, right?
Siblings.
Like,
Yeah.
so, and then we would like touch all of them, or we'd spit on it, or right? It's like, if you come from a family like my husband did of 7, right? It's like that rule can either be against you or for you, depending on how quick you are.
Well, yeah, and that was my grandpa's rule. So he would always take us to the corner store, me and my brothers, and his rule was always, if you touch it, you take it. And I was always so tempted to just run my hands across the whole aisle of candy. I'm like, all right, grandpa, I touched them all. Let's go.
Especially the penny candy. Remember, like, before we had sneeze guards and they had like gloves and all the things, you would just dig your hand in and pull out like gummy worms, right?
Get in there.
Oh,
It was
that's
so
awesome.
expensive back then because the guy at the counter would just be like, yeah, that's $2, and you're like, okay, $2, and there you go.
And you'd be handling the money and the candy at the same time for the kids are bags for you, right? Ew. Ew, ew.
I remember when the penny candy went from 1 cent to 2 cents and thinking that was outrageous. I
Yeah.
was like,
I remember my son saying, tax? I gotta pay tax? Like, I remember him being indignant about tax.
yeah.
Oh, that's so funny. So this is so good about laughing. I can see why Jack loved your book, because he loves to laugh. He loves to infuse humor. I mean, in all of his work, and I know there's a science around that as well, around when we're laughing. And so going back to your comedy, is that so on the side right now, or is this something that, I remember something we're talking about, a TV show. Are you moving forward to something like that?
Oh, I'd love to. In my ideal world and in the vision in my head, yes, I have a show on TV. Um, I'll answer those questions in reverse. The TV show, it's really funny. So I've been teaching for 20 years, but I've also been pitching TV shows for about the same time, not consistently. Like, I pitched my first TV show 20 years ago to the Comedy Network the day before my education program started. So it's really interesting. The creativity and my job as a teacher have always gone hand in hand. And in my ideal world, they would switch places where I would be making a full-time living off creativity and I could do education as kind of like a side thing, as like a consultant, or I could do like I could talk at schools and stuff like that. Um, the TV show that I pitched last summer, or last November, it's being shopped around right now to I probably can't say too much about it. It's a reality show. It's actually like being shopped around to major networks and stuff. It's still been like, it's still a lot of no's. Like I've really gotten used to hearing no, and that's fine. I just don't really care anymore. It used to kind of rejection would kind of get me down, but you get enough rejection, you stop caring. In fact, I got a rejection letter from a publisher last week, and I was like, oh my God, they actually answered me. It's it's kind of funny how constant rejection will harden you to it and like give you this sort of um like numbness to it, not in an unhealthy way. You don't care, you're very detached. But yes, I do have a TV show right now being shot around the studios. Obviously, I would love it to get picked up. That would just be amazing. I stopped doing in-person stand-up quite a while ago. I think it was in 2007 because I burned myself out. I got to the point where I was doing like some weeks I was doing 5 shows a week, and I very foolishly, as a new comedian, tried to make every show different, whereas the pros would do the same exact show every single show, right? So instead of like doing what those guys were doing and that they stayed in the game a long time, I was trying to make it do a new show every time. So I really, really burned myself out to the point that I actually got quite physically like sick. I've never really felt like that in my life, and I was like, okay, I got to stop. Like I'm really like burning the candle at both ends. So I haven't been back on stage other than one time, just to sort of do it again since then. But I am actually working on a comedy book right now that's going to be coming out. Like, I won't put a date on it, but I'm working on a comedy book, sort of very refined, very polished. But I have really, really been, and I actually wanted to talk to you about this, toying with the idea of doing internet comedy because there's like internet comedians that have huge followings, and I still write at least a joke a day. And my wife thinks I'm crazy because I'm standing there typing the joke into my phone, laughing. I'm like, oh, this is great. And to me, I'm like, well, like, when are you going to start sharing this stuff? Like, when are you going to like take that risk and put yourself out there again and share it? And I think it's really just my sort of fear that has kept me from stepping out. And I'm glad you asked that question because I was literally thinking about this exact same thing before the podcast.
Good, good. I love that. And the world needs that. And life is freaking hilarious when you can look at it through a certain lens and go, what just happened? Or did you see that? Like, or make connections or like, what? Like, I have so much fun on talk about the internet when there's a video and somebody's cooking with potato chips, okay, like she's all serious and her main ingredient is potato chips. Like I'm I'm gonna throw shade on the mom that's cooking with potato chips, I don't know, whatever, but I'm like, but then you read all the comments, like, hilarious. I mean, the video itself isn't funny, but when you read comments around what people say, I'm like, that's gold. Like, I think there is definitely a place for that. And I can't wait to see what you create. Go follow Adam. He's on social media. Go buy his book on Amazon. Adam, I thank you so much for being here. All the best with this coming school year. I know the kids are so blessed and lucky to have you. And again, thanks for being here. And for the listener, don't forget to dare to declare.
Today, we've delved into the realm of manifesting giants, exploring the power of declaring our desires to the universe with unapologetic boldness. But before we bid adieu, I have a little something special to share with all of you dreamers out there. Introducing the Dare to Declare Vision Board magazine and online DIY Vision Board course, your ticket to manifesting greatness in style. Picture this. Flipping through pages filled with inspiring images, empowering quotes, and step-by-step guides to help you create the vision board of your dreams. Whether you're yearning for that spacious condo with a view or a love that sets your soul on fire, our magazine is here to guide you every step of the way. Dive deep into the art of manifesting with our exclusive online DIY vision board course. led by manifesting expert, yes, yours truly, and seasoned dreamers. This course will teach you the ins and outs of creating a vision board that speaks to your heart and soul. So what are you waiting for? Join the ranks of the manifesting giants and dare to declare your wildest dreams to the universe. Head over to our website, debbisluice.com, and grab your copy of the Dare to Declare Vision Board magazine and enroll in our online DIY Vision Board course today. Until next time, keep dreaming big and daring to declare, because in the world of manifesting, the sky's the limit.